I'm David Marsh. Welcome to Exploring the Human Journey.
Exploring the Human Journey.
I always felt like I always just knew things, and I felt uncomfortable because I didn't learn them. It wasn't like somebody told me something. So for example, when I used to do massage, I would massage people, but I would just feel something about them, or I would hear a question in my mind. I would see a certain move to do with the person, so I would do it. And then afterwards, the client would say, "How did you know how to do that?" And I felt uncomfortable because I didn't know. I didn't learn it in school. It was just a feeling. It was the intuition. So I asked another massage therapist who seemed very spiritual. She went to church, and I said, "Hey, I feel like God's talking to me. I feel like I'm seeing these pictures as what to do on people." And she said, "No, God doesn't speak to people in that way." And instantly I got nervous because I didn't have a background. I didn't go to church, and I didn't want to do something devilish. So I kind of moved away from it, but it kept happening. And I was very uncomfortable with it because I didn't know. So when I started following my intuition, I kept hearing God say, "Don't forget this story, it's gonna go in your book." And I laughed. I was like, I'm not a writer. I don't like writing. I'm not gonna write a book, but I kept hearing that time after time after time. So finally, I just wrote down a list and I started writing down like the names or don't forget this story. So then one day I thought, okay, I'm just gonna start writing. And one day I wrote 3,000 words. The next day I wrote another 3,000 words. And then when I ran out of story, I looked at that list and I just went down the list and I crossed that one off and I wrote about it. And then 10 days later, here I had this book. You know, I felt like it was guided on all the stories that God led me to, and I felt like I needed to get that work out there. Because when I was teaching classes, people would say, "Where do I start? What do I do? I'm really interested in this. How can you teach me?" So I figured, well, if I had my book, I could just give it to them and they can read it on their own. So that's how I came up with the book. And I started to realize that my healing takes place through my words, also through my classes, through guiding people through meditation, and then now through my words. I realized that we needed to work on the same core things, which is belief system, identity, ego. You know, how is it that you see yourself versus how the world sees you? How you were trained to be, right? When we're younger, we think we want to be a certain way, and then that just changes over time, the way we develop. You know, we're taught to have somebody tell us what to do, and we're not taught to listen to our emotions, to listen to our intention. God is always talking to us. He's always speaking. We have to have our own discernment. So my love and passion is helping people identify what that discernment feels like in our physical being, how we hear, how we feel, how we see. The communication is all around us.
Hi and welcome. I'm glad you joined us. I got the one and only Carolyn Berry on set today. Carolyn, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, I loved your feature video where you gave presence to the intuition. You help a lot of people with that. I've had an experience where I've been at a meetup session with you and Bob the Psychic, and you help people tap into their own intuition and you give them information. So much I want to talk about.
Okay.
So let's just begin by welcome to the show.
Thanks.
And kind of give us a feel for some of the stuff that you do.
Okay. I think my main goal right now is to help people uncover what their intuition is, because God's always talking to us.
Yep.
The communication is always there. You just have to recognize it.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
It's all around.
It's all around us.
Find that
It's
frequency.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about synchronicities. When you start to see things happen, you see the repeated numbers, you meet someone, you're like, hey, that's a really coincidental meeting. You start to see those synchronicities. Talk about that and the way spirit guides through that.
Okay, sure. I think sometimes when we have a thought or an internal prayer that we've kind of asked God, like, oh, I wonder this or I want that, and then all of a sudden it shows up. You could be at the grocery store in line and the person in front of you just happens to say something to you and it answers that question for you. To me, that's how it works. And if that person doesn't say it, if I call it like an implant, well, God would just kind of let somebody know about it. And then if they don't relay that message, they're going to use somebody else. And it's going to be implanted in that next person. And hopefully they'll say it. If not, it'll just move on until that answer gets answered. That question gets answered.
So if I have questions about relationships, career, you probably hear a lot of like, what's my life purpose? Kind of give some presence to those things that people want.
So I used to believe that we had this one life purpose, So I used to think that, I mean, obviously I felt like at my core, my life purpose was to heal and help people. And I had it in my mind what that looked like. But I feel like our life purpose always changes. You know, my life purpose 10 years ago or 20 years ago was way different than it is now.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
the first time I thought I was going to heal the world by doing massage, and that only lasted 7.5 years because I was tired.
Yeah. Well, it's strenuous work too.
It is strenuous work, yeah. So I think that it changes. And if you get stuck on what is my one life purpose, you're missing the present moment, and you're missing what it is at this moment. Like our purpose right now is to have this conversation and sit here and do this show.
Yes. I love how you give presence to that, because what is my purpose? My purpose is to be present.
Yes.
And here, right now, this is what I'm doing, whether I'm in the garden, making a meal, watching a baseball game with a loved one, or just relaxing. That thing is your life purpose.
Absolutely. And there's the planting seeds and, you know, setting your intention and your goals and then watch it manifest. But, you know, it's not just that one fixated thing, because when you get there, it might change. You have to be open to if something else comes along that you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got a chance to read Carolyn's book. It's really good. And I'm happy. How did I get here? And I wrote down some notes, because this book is full of personal experiences, and it's full of useful tips and tools that people can take away.
Thank you.
I love, like, the beginning, you were in the corporate world and you're like, facts tell, stories sell.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's such a corporate-y thing to say.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that you can let people know your journey when you have written some stuff down. So number one, I honor you for taking time to sit at your computer doing something that you had said you were not necessarily comfortable with, but you pounded the keyboard, you threw some words on, you know, pen to pad, if you will, and you created this collection of your thoughts. So number one, I honored you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, when I started teaching classes, you know, a lot of people would come up to me afterwards and say, I'm brand new to this. What do I do? Or I'd even have some healers just ask me some questions like, oh, this is like a different kind of teaching. So in my mind, I thought, well, if I had a book, I would be able to give it to them and they could take it home and read it. So I sat down one day and just started writing. And I was surprised how it just all came out. One day, 3,000 words. The next day, I was finished in 10 days.
Wow. That's great.
And then it took me back to my college days of, you know, where was this kind of intention when I had to write a 500-word page essay? It wasn't there. So this just kind of flowed out of me. And I think it's very spirit-led. I feel like God really wanted to tell these stories through me on how the communication happens, just for people to open up and have that awareness.
Yeah. You talk about grounding in here, and at the beginning of the book, that was a new thing to you at the time.
Yeah.
And you share your spiritual evolution from the time of learning and the processes that you were going. So for people that have been like, well, I've heard about grounding, I don't really understand it, give some presence to that.
Yep. So I think what happens is our body, we're physically here on this earth and we're grounded. But what happens is sometimes when experiences happen throughout our life, whether it's trauma or an emotion or somebody hurts our feelings, we don't really want to feel that. So we kind of start to leave our body a little bit from a spiritual standpoint. So in my book, I talk about how my mentor told me that I needed to ground. And I associated that with a bad word, you know, because nobody wants to be grounded when you're younger, right? It's like, it means you can't go anywhere.
You're grounded.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wasn't an expert at meditation, you know, especially because I didn't feel like I could relax or calm my mind down. So I really resonated with this kind of meditation where you're focusing in on your body. And then I started getting symbols. So that was another way that I realized how the communication was happening with me.
Ooh.
So grounding is essentially being in your body, connecting to the earth on a deep level. And it's a way for you to release. You know, we're always cleansing ourselves, just like if you take a shower, you're letting the water hit you internally. Grounding essentially is the same way internally, where you're just grabbing all that emotion and feeling and you're sending it down to the center of the earth.
Beautiful.
So you're not holding on to it. It doesn't reabsorb. It's not sitting in your muscle tissue or your cellular level. Yeah, we've
been taking yoga teacher training, and that's one thing we've learned, to connect with your breath and just to be grounded and literally sitting on the ground and, you know, using your visualization, just imagine the energy flowing into the ground and being rooted. And it's a really calming presence just to connect to your breath.
Absolutely. And I remember asking my mentor, because I when I started this work, I was still flying a lot. I still had my corporate job.
Oh, yeah.
So I had asked her, well, how am I supposed to ground when I'm in an airplane? I really couldn't visualize if I'm way up in the sky, how I could be connected.
You're so literal. You're like, I need to be on the ground. I'm in the air.
If I'm supposed to touch my feet on the ground. But it really is about the consciousness of your energy cord could be connected at any point in time.
Yeah.
So if I'm on the airplane getting frustrated, or I got an email that just was bothering me, I could take that energy and just send it down. I didn't have to physically be present on the earth. So for those people who are at their job, can't get away for a 20-minute meditation, they can literally just take that breath and start sending it down.
That's really good. And then you start talking about connecting with spirit, with guides. Give some presence to that.
Okay, sure. At first I had a lot of questions wondering what that is, especially because there's so many different teachings, right? Is it God talking to me? Is it a spirit?
Yeah,
is it
who or what is it?
who, what? And, I just clump it all together because I trust that God knows. So it takes a lot of pressure on me trying to figure out who or what or get a name and any of that. I just know it's not me. Like at first, when the communication started happening, I wondered, am I making it up? And then I realized, wow, I'm not that creative. And then and the energy feels different too. So I know that it's not coming from me. Yeah. And then I just trust if I made a mistake, I know God will fix it. So it takes a lot of pressure off me if in my ego or anything.
That's beautiful. I like that where you realize it's okay, I'm on this journey. There's really nothing I can do to totally mess my life up.
Right.
I can just experience it. And then if there's something I didn't enjoy, then maybe I don't repeat that same thing over again. You can co-create that space.
It took me a while to get there. I mean, especially because I used to be so angry. I tell people that I came out of the womb angry. Because, I don't have a story where I was locked in a closet when I was a kid. I don't have any trauma, and I didn't really understand where the anger came from. So when I first started healing, I thought, okay, if I get rid of this anger, my life will be perfect. And then I realized once I started healing that anger, I still got angry. It's because we're, living in the world, things happen. You just have to process it. And I used to not like my spiritual journey. I didn't like that healing because it just felt so heavy. And now I actually love it. I'm like, okay, great. What else can I heal? What else is going to come to the surface that's ridiculous or old belief system or a part of my pattern that I just don't want to keep? And I look for it now instead of not wanting it to come up.
That's good. Now, part of my journey has been a belief system that was rooted in fear that I had to get it exactly right because somebody had told me this is the truth. And if I believe this truth, then I'll be fine. Which put me into a space that I would say was spiritual anxiety. And I was like, oh man, well, if I don't get it right, then I go to hell forever. And that fear-based construct of whatever it is, it puts you in such a paralyzing grip. To me, the only narrative was, we've got to get out of here to get up to there. And it didn't allow me to enjoy being here. How do you help people with belief systems that are gripped in fear?
Yeah, so the first thing is I don't have a list of belief systems. It's really about uncovering the ones that don't work for you any longer.
That's good.
So that's why I teach through my examples, because you mentioned religion. So I'll talk about that first. I have tons of friends that are different religions. Some I had never even heard of before. One of my good friends is a Baha'i faith. And I love her family. I love her teachings. I love how they teach, are relating to people. So one day when I was sitting in my church and, people are saying this is the only one way. And so I asked Jesus, I said, okay, I want you to show me. If I'm doing something wrong, I want you to show me. Because how am I supposed to not like these people? How am I not supposed to enjoy their conversation when it feels good? I don't feel like they're leading me in any direction. After a while, I just kind of had that sensation like it wasn't my job. And that was very freeing too, because it's not my job. My job is just to be me. And my job is to keep my connection and my relationship and allow him to show up however that is, whatever that means and whatever that looks like. So in my classes, I also teach too. If people believe in a frog, that's up to them. I'm not going to judge. It's just not my place to say what you should believe or not.
That's a very freeing place to come from. I was given the narrative that I knew what the truth was, so it was my responsibility to convert everyone around me to my same belief system. So what do you do when you're in that space where you're like, well, my family, my peers, my this authority person in my life that's a spiritual leader told me this is the real truth and everybody else is wrong and they're being deceived. You know the truth and you have to tell everybody your truth. What do you say to that person?
So to me, if I just tune into the energy of Jesus and what he did biblically from that story and that standpoint, he just asked people to follow him. And that was it. There was no dragging, there was no convincing. I don't know of anywhere in the Bible, and maybe you're more versed in there, where it was a demanding or, what did he do? It seemed to me, in my perception, was more of a free spirit. Like, this is the direction I'm going.
Well, I like how Jesus said, follow me, not worship me.
Right.
He says, this is my example, follow the loving example. But then he was made to be a person that we all had to worship. So.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's frustrating for me to see people get frustrated or argue over religion, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If you're vegan, I don't care if you eat or not meat, or if you decide to, whatever it is in your life that you do.
Yeah, that's a very forward-thinking, conscious way to do it, and I also believe that at this point in my life. But there was a space where I was just filled with doubt, and I was filled with fear, and I'm like, I don't understand this.
Yeah.
I viewed God as this deity that, quite frankly, I thought God was a dick.
Right.
I'm like, you made this heaven-hell thing. Well, how does that serve you for people to have to go to conscious eternal torment? How does that serve you?
Exactly.
And through uncovering and through connecting and through researching and through having experiences, I realized, that was a system of belief. It wasn't the truth. It was simply a belief system. And I went,
Yeah, and it takes a lot of energy to figure out if it is or if it isn't. That's why if you go back to how does it make you feel, what's your discernment?
Yeah.
And if you just keep praying on it, and if you don't see a certain way, then just let it go. Because at the end of the day, we're not going to know until we die anyway. So to me, why spend your life trying to prove something?
Well, the stakes are pretty high. When your authority figure tells you if you don't get it right, you go to conscious eternal torment forever, and then you're done. You never get a chance. Well, what if after I die? Can I accept Jesus? Nope, it's too late. So there's a lot of fear there. It's an unpleasant state to be in. And so my process of deconstructing that fear has been like, I studied near-death experiences, and I found out everyone says you're going to be okay. This is simply a human experience, and you're a safe, secure spiritual being that's gonna be safe.
Right.
And that gave me a lot of, So then when I meet you and you're dialed into intuition, you're like, these are belief systems. I now have the ability to listen and receive from you because I'm letting go of that fear. So what you're doing is you're reinforcing the love. You're reinforcing my safety and my comfort.
Yep.
So how do you connect people to intuition when they come from those scary? How do you give them the permission to let go of a fear-based system?
Well, I think the first thing is we identify what it is that's holding them back, right? What are your fears? What are your belief systems? How do you see yourself? What's your identity? Because if you have all of those layers, you can't really see past that. A lot of times too, people, they have all this protection. It's like, let that go. I mean, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I mean, if we're talking about religion, I understand the fear aspect of that.
You're going to go to hell forever,
Yeah, exactly. But even let's just lighten the conversation and talk about people changing jobs.
Okay.
Or moving. If you move, you can always go back.
I imagine people go, should I move? Should I take another job? I suppose they want guidance in that area.
Exactly. And so what I do is I try not to give future things, or, even if I see that, it's more like, okay, let's go through the system of what would that look like? How's your life going to change? What is it that you truly want? Are you doing it because you want to run away? Are you doing it because somebody told you to? Right? There's a lot of different factors that go into that decision making. But ultimately, I don't want to tell you what to do, because you need to figure it out for yourself.
I love that.
And I mean, I'm going to help you and guide you. And this is the energy that I see. These are the things that I'm seeing that you need to maybe look at before you make that decision. That's where I come in assistance, instead of just saying, yes, I see you moving in 6 months, or you're going to meet this person, because energy changes. You and I could have that conversation today, and then this afternoon something else changes, and the energy, now there's a different kind of message.
It's shifted around.
Yeah, exactly, because that happens too.
Yeah. I met you in Phoenix at a meetup group, and you were working with Bob the Psychic, and he was giving information, and you were writing down, and then he'd finish speaking, and then you'd go, okay, da-da-da-da, you start listening, and there was such a profound, and his energy was different than yours. You had such a different way of viewing things. Give presence to that. Talk about that.
Yeah, so for me, I do like to write a lot, because the messages come in so quickly.
Yeah,
so sometimes
very
it's
visual.
symbols, or I'll see a picture, and then I have to go through my list of asking those questions. So for instance, there's a story in my book. One of the first times I ever sat on my prophetic ministry team at my church. And so I had no experience. I was just kind of thrown in there because one of their leaders saw that I had some gifts and said, let's do this. So this woman sat down, and all of a sudden I started getting these pictures. I saw her walking into a designer store trying on all these jeans. And so I asked, well, what is that about? Is it her actually putting on these jeans? And the message was that she is looking for something and that she's going to find the right fit. That's what it was. And so when I told her the message, it didn't make sense to me, but it made sense to her because she kept going around trying to find a different church and trying to find that fit. And she just wanted to be inspired that God was going to find the right fit.
Yeah.
But the communication for me was a visual,
Yep.
and then I just had to interpret it.
Yep.
And then I gave her the message.
Oh,
So that's
so good.
Yeah.
I love that story because I was thinking while I'm reading that chapter, I was thinking, okay, I can see how this would be applicable. You know, you're trying on different things, and then you're like, I don't know, does that mean? And she's like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Big red fire truck. It's a
Yeah.
message from the divine that I'm, supposed to
So
be
last
settled.
night, for instance, I had a class. And when I was working with this woman, I told her, I said, there's a lot of stuck energy in your gut. You need to kind of move that out.
Yeah.
So I told her to go back in meditation and work on that. And then later she asked me, she said, can you check in to see if it's gone? And I saw that it was still stuck here. So I asked Spirit, I said, give me a symbol that I could show her to help her understand what's going on here. So I saw a bunch of apples that were stuck. And so I told her to imagine those apples in her stomach and then start smashing them up into applesauce.
Oh, wow.
And then imagine that coming up and out.
Yeah.
Almost as if she was vomiting, but from an energetic perspective.
Yeah.
So it sounds crazy, but those kind of things work. You know,
Yeah.
we relate to images. We see pictures, we get it, we understand. We're visual people.
That story, that picture, yeah.
Yep. And then sometimes I'll just hear a word like it's associated with a certain emotion, so they can throw that in too. But that's how the communication happens for me.
That's really good. You do a lot of teaching in group settings.
Yeah, I love
And
group
while
work.
you can do the one-on-one, you're really powerful in that group setting. Talk about how you've kind of got into that vein, that mode of teaching.
So I started teaching in the meditation classes because I thought it was important for people to learn how to ground. And then that kind of evolved.
I love that because you were like, meditation, blah, 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 I can't do this. But now you're
Yeah.
like teaching meditation.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's amazing, actually. I still kind of laugh at it. But I think it's important, too, because it reminds me to stay grounded. Because I get so excited and, you know, sometimes I trip. And then I have to remind myself, oh, ground yourself. Because I typically, my spirit is so much stronger than my body sometimes. But the meditation, so I love group work because I think it's important for people, one, to be in their body. And then that just kind of evolved. So when I was teaching at one center, I saw he had a gong in the corner. And I'd probably been teaching there for like a year. And then all of a sudden, I just saw myself playing the gong. So I went and asked him and I said, hey, can I play your gong? And he said yes. And I thought he was going to give me a tutorial. And he just kind of said, this is a spiritual tool. Make sure you respect it. So here I led a class. And then all of a sudden I'm going to play the gong, which I'd never played before.
Wow.
So I, sat in front of it. And all of a sudden I saw where to hit it. I knew when to wait to let the tones move. And I saw the energy coming off of it. Behind me, I could feel some of the emotion that it was releasing. Yeah, it was really powerful. So I've been playing the gong ever since. So I've added that.
Wow.
And then I try to stick to do classes that I'm guided to. So last night I mentioned I had a class that I did, an ancestor healing class, because there's a lot of genetics and DNA that we take responsibility from an energetic standpoint that we need to just let that go. We need to heal the energy behind that.
Talk about that journey that your soul is going through. We were somewhere. We've come here. We're having this human experience. And then when this life is over, we will go and continue on. Talk about that process.
Yeah. So I can't really answer it because I haven't seen it for myself.
Yeah.
So I'll just tell you what my perception is on that. So one, I know that I'm here to do whatever. One, enjoy the experience. So I'm really trying to do that.
Yeah.
And then be a decent human and help people along the way.
Yeah.
As far as what we do before we came and after, I'm still confused on that because I had mutual teachers or many people tell me, oh, I see you as this past life. And even though they don't know each other, they've seen the same one.
Oh, wow.
But I never saw it for myself. So I don't know if it's because it's blocked, or could it be that other religions will teach that we only have one body, but we witness and help other people along the way. So it could be that. So I don't really know what happens. And that's why I focus on, hey, what's going on right now? I don't care if I was a queen in my past life. I'm not one today.
How's it help me right now?
Right,
It doesn't.
exactly.
So why do I care? Yeah.
So to me, it's like, okay, just heal the energy behind that.
Yeah.
So I can be fully present in this lifetime and what can I do now? Because that's really the most important thing.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I really identify with that because of the folks that have said they've had past life things, and I've had someone say that, I see this as a thing, and okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
how's that going to help me pay rent? You know, or
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
You know, how's that going to work in my favor?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a part of the thing. I do like the way in Journey of Souls, Dr. Newton talks about this giant cosmic experience that we're having, and these little teeny tiny lifetimes that we have, if they're 100 years or whatever, they're part of our cosmic journey. So I do like that I can just trust that it's okay, whatever those past experiences, they all seem to function for some purpose. But man, if I get caught up, I'm once again back in that mindset of like, I've got to try to figure out something else.
Yeah.
No, I've got to try to be right here because
Right.
that's my purpose.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yep.
And you talk about manifesting, you talk about hearing from God. That was a really good chapter of how you were learning to hear and then you were learning to manifest.
Yep.
Give some presence to that.
So there's a manifestation, I believe in it. And I think how it happens is two parts. You have to, one, have that thought, and then you have to bring it into creation. But I think a lot of it isn't just wishing it to death. You know, you have to feel it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I want.
Yeah.
You have to be in the energy of actually feeling it. So I give you a couple examples of that. Because there's always what Carolyn wanted. Like I said, there was this healing journey that I thought I was going to have this healing center. I thought I was going to heal people in a certain way. And then this colon hydrotherapy came about, which we can talk about that later.
Can't wait to talk about it.
And I never thought in a million years that that would be included with my healing. And so part of me is, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to listen. And then I'm going to see what other energy is going to come out of that. So for instance, I started having one room, and then I saw myself having a bigger office. I saw myself getting bigger devices. But then in my mind, I thought, well, I can't afford it. How's that going to happen? But I started visualizing what it would be for me to be in that center, what it would feel like, how many people I could help. And then I just let it go. Meaning if it's going to happen, it's going to show up. So then a week later, I get an email that the devices are on sale, and it was in my budget and I could afford it. So that's how I think I pair it. You manifest it, it has that thought, and then you just feel it. You visualize it. You see what it is to be in that situation. Because that's how the creation comes about.
Beautiful. I've been taking yoga teacher training, and one of the things that I learned from one particular yoga teacher, shout out to Will Zecco, is he says, I put my hands at the top of my forehead or the third eye, and he says, I visualize, and then I put my hands at my throat and I speak it. Then I put my hands at my heart and I believe it. And I went, oh, wow.
Nice.
Talk about manifesting.
Yeah.
And then he's just being there in yoga, and he's just teaching people to be connected to their breath. But what a profound manifestation process where you visualize it, you speak those words of affirmation, and you believe in your heart that that's possible for you. Such a liberating and free thing.
And then if you get off track from that, like doubt will come in because that's normal, right? That's part of being in the human experience.
Welcome to the journey.
Yeah, the doubt, the fear, whatever. And then you just got to acknowledge that that's there, and then dismiss that, and then bring yourself back to the energy of, no, this is what I know what's meant to be.
Yeah. And I love the process that it is okay. Even if you get it wrong, you're still going to be fine.
Right.
Figure out what you were off course and just come back to wherever you can.
Yep.
It's so good. Tell me the story about the words free man.
Free man. Okay, so that was in my book. And I remember sitting there waiting for our church session. We had a big conference. I mean, we're talking like 300 or so people. I don't even know. It's like 3 stories. And I was just sitting there, and this woman walked in, and she asked me if I knew what my name meant. And I said, no, I'd never heard of that before. And so she told me what her name meant. And so I just got on my phone, thank God for Google, looked it up, and I'm like, free man? That's kind of dumb. And I just put it down and didn't think of it.
My name means what?
Yeah, I was like, okay. All right. You know, I was thinking something like, you know, I don't know what I was thinking, but it wasn't
Princess, very important, special person.
Know, right?
Carolyn's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
So I kind of dismissed
Special chosen of God.
Right. Yeah. Special child or something, right?
Yeah, it's something special.
Yeah. So I went upstairs, and I had met my friends, and we were watching the service, and we were kind of checking and chatting, and then all of a sudden I heard the speaker say something about free man and how that free man was going to free people. And I thought, oh, it just hit me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you're in church or wherever and you feel that Holy Spirit hit you. And it's like, whoa, wake up. I need you to pay attention to this. I need you to receive this. I need you to just let that energy run through you. So it was like a bolt of that energy. And then I shared with them, and then they even confirmed that they felt that energy too. So, you know, here I dismissed it. And then, no, you need to pay attention to that. So it was interesting to feel that. And in a way, I am freeing people maybe in the way that I didn't expect
100%.
through my words, through the meditation, through helping them identify where the energy is stuck in their body that they need to let go of.
Yes. You are doing such good work in all of that energy, intuition, guidance. And I love the synchronicity. And I love that God can talk to you in whatever paradigm you're in. If you're in a religious context, if you're in a political context, if you're out jogging, whatever, you can have connection with that divine spiritual source.
Right. So it reminds me of a story before I even started my healing journey. It was when I was in my corporate job. And here I am just totally focused. I'm doing really well. I'm going to open up my own space. And I had interviews. So I'd sit down with somebody and I would hear God say, hire this person. 10 minutes into it, 15 minutes into it. So I was just going through like this. I would hear no, or I would hear this person's going to be there only for 3 months. So don't get attached to them. And I'd hire him. And then I would hear, hire this person, but just be aware of these 5 things that might happen. Wow. Yeah, it was very specific. So, 3 months later, this person leaves. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was told that she wasn't going to be here. And then sure enough, I hired this person. She was amazing. But these 5 things started to come up. So, I give all my success to listening on that too, because I didn't build that. I would know exactly how much revenue was going to come in. I'd just pick a number and then all of a sudden it would happen. And then everyone around me didn't really know it was happening. And that was why it was hard for me, because here I'm in this corporate world and I have this intuition, but I can't really tell, oh yeah, God told me to hire this person. That doesn't really work.
Doesn't seem to flow very well in the financial budgeting meeting.
And then I had the conversation with one of the women that I hired. She was a little bit older than me. So she was excited about her interview process. So she was wondering why this 27-year-old at the time didn't really give her a proper interview. So I told her, I said, well, God just told me to hire you. She's like, I was wondering what happened because I wasn't even there for 15 minutes. You barely looked at my resume and then you just passed me on to the next level. So yeah, and then we're still.
Isn't she like offended because she didn't get the grill?
Yeah, exactly. She kind of, she'd had her own business for a long time and she really wanted like a proper interview.
She wants to, her ego wants to be like, I'm amazing. Let me tell you.
Yeah. So I was sitting there trying to think of questions because I already had heard,
just making stuff up.
Yeah, and here we had this beautiful team. We won awards for it, and it was all spirit led. Yeah, it was awesome. So I mentioned that because even in the corporate world, you don't have to, go to this meditation center. You don't have to, drive or leave your area. You can have that meditation in whatever facility or whatever facet of your life, whether it's relationship or career. You just got to take a moment to listen.
Yeah. Wow, that's so good. So when people come into a state of connecting with that intuition, is it a place where they make a practice of being quiet? What are some 3 easy steps to finding your intuition? What are some practical things that people can do?
I think the first thing I talk about grounding is releasing the energy that no longer serves you. That's kind of my mantra, right? Whatever it may be. So then when you do that, then you can kind of feel like you're back in a balanced state. Because then you can start pay attention. Because if you have this fear over here or doubt over here, it's going to be confusing. So once you kind of clear that out and your layer is gone, then that's when you'll start to feel the discernment in your body. So when I say discernment, it's like a feeling. You might get a feeling in your shoulders or in your arm, or maybe you don't feel it in your actual body, but you just have a sense of knowing. Like, I know I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah.
And then if you feel, because it's hard for us to make the decisions on our own, that's why having a mentor is really good. Like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. What are you picking up? To kind of collaborate and see on that aspect.
You give gratitude for spiritual mentors that you've had along the way.
Yeah.
And you talk about, hey, I was able to bounce stuff off of somebody that's a little farther down the road than me, and they can come back and go, oh no, you'll be fine. Keep coming up.
Yeah. In fact, my mentor, one time, I was just having a difficult time when I was living in North Carolina. A lot of body stuff. And she told me, said, Carolyn, you need to follow your spiritual path. You need to start healing and helping people. You're not using your gifts, so all the energy is stuck. And I didn't really understand what that meant. So I asked her, I said, well, I need to heal myself before I heal others. And so she had freed me by saying, we're always healing ourselves. But once you start helping other people, you're going to run that energy through you and you're going to get a healing at the same time. So once I started doing that, I started feeling a little bit better, and there was times where I just said, can't you just take it all away? Can't you just wave some magic wand or give me a pill? Even though I knew that wasn't the truth, because I knew I had to do the work. We all want that, We want that quick fix and just to be better.
Give me the pill that makes it all better. I don't have to do anything.
Exactly. Just want to feel better. Because it's hard. It's hard work.
That hard work is part of the human journey. And we're like, it's like lifting weights. If you want to have muscles, you got to lift weights.
Yep, you got to do the work. In fact, I would tell people, I mean, I'd like to meet that person who hasn't suffered in some capacity, right? They
Doesn't
just don't
happen.
exist. So
Yeah.
if you walk in this path knowing that you are going to suffer, there's going to be some uncomfortableness, and embrace it, it goes away a lot faster.
Yeah, I love that. Every time I see someone in a position of being a teacher, or somehow being in a space where they're giving information, I'm like, they've got a journey they've gone through to be in that space.
Yeah.
And then I imagine the people sitting there listening to that person, maybe if you're in that capacity, they're like, oh, Carolyn's life's got to be so easy. Oh, I bet she's never had any problems. Wait till she hears my story. And then they're telling, and you're like, what? That's nothing.
Yeah.
Wait till you hear my story.
Yeah,
but I imagine you restrain and you go, oh, really? Tell me more.
Well, what's funny is I always tell people what I'm going through. I'm not pretending that my life is all butterflies. There's things that come up. It's dealing with it all the time. So 2 stories I'm thinking of is, one, when I was driving, I had my brother's girlfriend with me at the time. And I was probably a couple years ago, so it was new into my journey, but I was already teaching meditation classes, and a bit of road rage came up.
Oh.
So I slipped one of these F-bombs, as we all know what they are. And her comment was, wow, I can't believe you just said that and you teach meditation. And I laughed. I was like, whoa, that's so much judgment, right? I mean, I'm a real person. Things come up. You deal with it. I'm not all zen all the time. It just doesn't happen. And then I had somebody say, well, don't you practice yoga? Yoga doesn't equal spirituality. I don't like yoga. I like savasana.
Yep.
I'll do that all day long.
Yep. Yeah, we do all this stuff so we get then we can let into shavasana.
But yoga's great for people who want to do it. I purposely just don't. It doesn't relate to me, but it doesn't equal spirituality either, And that's where it's funny to me when I see judgments or whatever. It's like, no, you're going to see my daily life, and it's not all butterflies. Things come up. I have my own doubts. I have my own fears. I just don't stay in it very long.
Yeah. See, that's the key right there.
Yeah.
Is you can see it, you can be human in that experience, but then you can let it go.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was dissolving a partnership that I had in a business once. This is probably a few years back, and I was really angry about it. She started to do some really shady things, and I knew I was angry. So I just had to have a conversation with my body. And I said, okay, I'm going to be angry for a few weeks. I just need you to know that. And I'm not going to even deal with it right now. I just need to be angry because this situation really kind of pissed me off.
Yeah.
So I sat with the anger, and then after a few weeks, I realized I needed a couple more days. So
not done yet.
That's where I'm just really honest with it. And then I sat with it a couple more days, and then I said, okay, I'm finally ready to deal with this. And then all the other emotion comes up with it too. That's attached to anger, disappointment, and frustration, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I really like how you connect to knowing and seeing and hearing and feeling, these kind of sensory, emotional constructs that we have. How do we put our emotional body into that intuition space? Because I was given that narrative that if you are guided by your emotions, that's how you'll be deceived by the devil. That's what I was told.
Right. Okay.
So I was never allowed or never encouraged to connect to intuition.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, oh, I do have that intuition, and it's through that emotional context.
Yeah, we do have that intuition and that feeling. I mean, it's our innate nature, right? Before our parents tell us, don't touch that fire, we're probably curious. But maybe when we get close to it, we know, well, that's kind of hot. I'm not sure if I should continue touching it.
Yeah.
And you touch it and you get burned, right? Yeah. But I think we're always feeling. I mean, that's how we should be led. When you walk into a room and you feel, oh, I should stay away from this person. Or maybe you're out walking somewhere and you feel, oh, I should move a different direction because something doesn't feel right. Sometimes you can't even identify it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a way for our emotions to help drive us.
Yeah.
But you got to check in. Is it coming from a fear standpoint? Because somebody told me not to do that. That's where that balance and that understanding, okay, I'm checking in. This isn't from a fear standpoint or an old belief system. I got to go with my feeling. Because it can be confusing. I can see how that could be.
That's really good. You have space and classes where you teach people how to use their intuition, their psychic giftings. And sweet Lady Gail took a class of yours a few months ago. And in the class, she said, all right, everybody, I'm going to project a certain energy. I'm going to put it out into kind of the center here. I'm thinking of something. I'm just going to let it go. And I'm going to see if you can kind of feel what energy. And after a few minutes, nothing, you're like, okay, I'm going to give you a hint. I'm thinking of an animal. And Gail is sitting there and she told me the story. She said, Dave, I kept seeing like Mickey Mouse. And people were like, oh, I see a dog, a black dog. And you're like, okay, well, that's interesting. A dog's an animal.
Yeah.
And then she goes, I was going to say something, but I don't know. It just sounded dumb, Mickey Mouse. I don't know. So she decided not to say anything. And you go, well, the energy I was putting out was a mouse. And she goes, oh, she said, I should have said it.
Yeah.
Because she was finding that connectivity and it was giving trust to her intuition to where she was like, I do have confidence. And now I've seen her begin to grow and develop in that connection. And it's wonderful. I thank you for that.
Yeah.
How do you facilitate that?
Gosh, it's hard to explain. It's one of those things that I first of all, I feel like there's no secrets out there. If you're going to put something out there, we have our story written in our energy field, right?
Beautiful.
We're creating all the time. So it's just a matter of tapping into that energy and you can feel and see and know and all that stuff. But what gets into the doubt where people don't trust it is we've been told since we're this big, oh, you don't know that. You can't possibly know that.
There's no way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't trust that. Or you're not hearing clearly because I know better because I'm an adult or a authority figure, right? So we have to unwind and get rid of all of that. And then also we just don't trust ourselves. It's hard. So, I get that all the time. It's the number one thing where people will say that they feel it or they see it. They just didn't speak up because they don't want to be embarrassed because there's some innate nature too that we want to do things right, right?
So good.
We want to get it right. We don't want to be wrong.
As soon as they go, I saw Mickey Mouse, you're like, what? That's so dumb. Why would that? You're putting that story in your head that you think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's why I do creative, fun things like that to lighten the energy, have some fun with it. One of my classes, I actually picked Donald Trump. That was hilarious. Because I would see people said, I see Donald Duck with a bright orange top. And so when people are sharing this, I'm laughing because I don't want to give it away yet. But that's the energy that I had people kind of focus on. So it's a fun class, I try to create a space where people can be vulnerable enough to share. So that way they can grow their intuition and, I can help them. Okay, you might be seeing this or you might be seeing that. Because we do have doubt. We doubt ourselves.
When you are hearing that spiritual connection, do you think it's like a spirit guide working with you, an angelic realm, a divine? How do you kind of articulate what that presence is? Yeah,
it's hard for me to just clump it or, whether it's angels or an ancestor, or I just kind of clump it into all together to God,
Got it.
And funny enough, there's a story in my book that says, I don't talk to dead people, or do I? Because when I would be working with people, all of a sudden I would get a message. And here I was thinking it was God or, somebody, right? Clearly, how would I know this about someone? And then they would tell me that person's no longer living.
Oh, wow.
And so it was confusing to me because the energy felt good, right? Because I had this perception that if I was to talk to any dead people, it would feel eerie or scary, and it feels very vibrant. It feels the same as if I feel that connection to God. So to me, I just kind of clump it all together. It's too much for me to try to figure it out or, what's right or wrong. If it feels good, I just go with it.
That's good.
But I try not to identify it. That's where I get stuck. And label and all that stuff. I don't like any of that.
Yeah, you're just like, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I'm connected. I'm plugged into the socket.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't necessarily care what the energy source is. You just know you're plugged in.
Right.
That's
because
beautiful.
It takes away from it because then you miss the message. Rather than trying to focus on what or who or specifying it, I don't really go into that information.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So I brought a visual aid.
All right.
This is my visual aid. So you said, Dave, if you want to be clear and have a better connection to meditation, to spirit, you're definitely going to want to have a colonic because the business that you're involved with right now, Clean Colonic, is about making sure that we're not holding on to things that we don't need. And then you're actually talking about the physical body and our waste in our body.
Yes.
So I will let you know that this is not the one that she gave me. This is a brand new, fresh one. It was out of the package. I did not pull this out of the room that I was in. So I don't want to gross anyone out. So this is a clean, sanitized version of it. I did play with my college-age kids, and I did tell them, oh, yeah, here's the thing. And I smelled it and all sorts of stuff that was really gross. But to me, it was hilarious because it grossed my kids out.
Right.
But so you gave me the experience of having Thursday and a Friday back-to-back mornings of having a colonic.
Yep.
And give you gratitude for that. It was a new experience to me.
Yeah.
It was not something I had ever imagined I would do, having a colonic. But I had the experience of having a cleanse and having everything out that could possibly get out and just feeling that that lightness and that freshness.
Right.
How did you get into the health and wellness sector of dealing with poop?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, how'd you get into
I know
that?
it still baffles me that I actually have a clinic that includes that. But actually, I wrote my book in October of 2013, and then I sat on it for a long time because
Wow.
a whole bunch of stuff came up for me. You know, I was embarrassed. I didn't know if people were going to judge me, especially a lot of family stuff. You know, I didn't really talk about some of the things that were in there.
Yeah.
So when I sat on it, it was probably about 8 months or so. And then funny enough, my stomach started to grow. I looked 5 months pregnant.
Oh,
My
wow.
back was hurting really bad. So the first thing I did is, okay, I need to heal this energetically, right? So I was running my energy. That didn't work. And then I started talking to all my organs, you know, what's going on? Is there any energy that's stuck in there? And then I finally decided, well, maybe I just need to publish my book from a creative standpoint. If I birthed this thing, maybe my 5-month pregnancy look would go away, even though I wasn't pregnant. And it didn't. So a friend of mine kept telling me, why don't you go try colonic? And I said, well, what does that have to do with anything? You know, especially because I was having a bunch of female issues. I had cysts and fibroids. My cycle was always messed up. But because I was so desperate, I decided to go and try it. And it took 7 sessions before I released a lot. And that's when I realized that you can hold a lot in your stomach, not only from a physical standpoint, because your colon just gets stuff stuck in there and it doesn't fully release. Your colon will go around material. But it was also the other component of how much of a spiritual release I had too. I didn't realize how much energy I was holding in there, and also how I didn't feel free. So I want to say my best meditations that I've ever done has been on that device. Just going into my body, asking what am I holding on to. I want to say it was my 11th session when I felt really, really free. And the reason for that is because I actually cried the whole session. And I didn't realize how much irritability I'd been holding on to. I'd been compensating for so long. And so now I finally felt free. So I started to realize the connection between the physical. Because here I'd been focusing on my spirit and energy and God and all this stuff. And here I thought I was totally in my body. And it was another way to show me, no, you really aren't 100% in your body. You need to be as clean as possible. Not only physically, but then you can start moving your energy internally and out the same way too. Yeah. So you know, after that experience, I wanted to help. I started building with this clinic, and then I just kept hearing God in the background, you need to have your own. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. And I waited for about 4 or 5 months.
Oh, wow.
And I kept trying to go to other places and work there and do marketing and branding. And I never wanted to be a therapist because my ego would tell me, you know, you've just published a book, you've had this corporate job, and now you're going to get poop out of people. You're taking a bottom job, right? I mean, that's what my ego was telling me. I'll be honest with that.
You're better than that, Carolyn.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, I didn't know. I felt like I was going this direction. How do I merge the two? And so I decided, because I kept feeling this pressing, that I needed to open up and get my own, and that's what I did. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
For those of you that have never had a colonic, it's a gentle water. It fills up the colon. You release. If there's material there, it's released. My experience was I felt a little bit of cramping, and you're actually really adept at like finding space. You actually, for a period of time, pushed on my belly, and I was like, yeah, that's literally right where it's hurting, and you help move things, you know, whether it was gas bubbles or whatever, you help move things around. It was really therapeutic. It was really cool. It was a great experience. I'm glad I did. I told my manly brother, I'm like, you're never going to guess what I just did. And he's like, you did what? I was like, I know. Yes, we grew up as, you know, tough, manly men, you know. But I'm like, dude, it is really cool. And, you know, I know that you've got the big, tough, manly men, and they go there and they receive benefits. What are some of the things people tell you, stories about what they're letting go? Well,
unfortunately, you know, a lot of people aren't talking about it. So I do get people who actually have issues with their gut, constipation, whether it's been 8 days or a month, you know, there's that severity. And then there's also people who come in just because they've heard that it's really cleansing. Because it doesn't matter if the contents of your colon is pretty clear. You got to think about the debris that sits in there, you know, what's absorbed in your colon wall, because as you put the water in, your colon's going to open up, it's going to take in that new water, and it's going to push out whatever debris it's held on to. So that's where the real cleansing comes about. I mean, for me, it helped my cycle completely. I don't have any of those issues. I don't look 5 months pregnant. My skin looks amazing because I'm super hydrated.
And you get hydrated from the inside
Exactly.
out.
Yeah.
You're like, well, you're going to get hydrated. I'd not thought about
Yeah.
that. And so my joke was, I haven't had a drink of water in 2 days. You know, it's not true, but I was like teasing my college age kids about that.
Yeah. I mean, you also do get a little bit of dehydration too, because it's like a workout. So you're losing electrolytes.
Yeah.
But you know, it's really beneficial. That's why I tell people, even if you don't have any problems, just see what your colon is like. You just don't know until you start putting water in there.
Now, you said your colon is like your second brain. It's like an information nerve center. Talk about that.
So more and more research is coming about the brain being, there's the gut being the second brain. If you think about, if you look at the gut, there's tons of blood vessels and arteries and everything that's attached to that. So again, my personal experience, I had tons of allergies too, because I've been trying to figure out what was wrong with my body for like 20 years. I would just swell. I always had to carry liquid Benadryl with me because it didn't matter what I ate. I would have a reaction and I would just swell and I would be really uncomfortable and I'd break out in hives. So anyway, I had a list. I took an allergy test, one of those, and it pretty much, I was allergic to everything.
Oh, you checked off all the boxes.
I thought, what am I supposed to eat? You know, it was really frustrating. And so after I did the colonic and kind of cleared all that out, I don't have any allergies now, which is surprising. So the way I interpret that is if you have a blockage or a lining or the smallest little piece that maybe is breaking that communication through the rest of your body. So broccoli, for example, to me, in my mind, God gave us broccoli to eat. Why am I allergic to it, right? So if you have that communication where the intelligence of your body can't identify what that is, it starts creating havoc. So if you eat a broccoli and that intelligence isn't there, it's like, oh, I got to create mucus to get it through. I'm going to create inflammation because I don't know what this is, and it can't really pass it through as easy. You clean it out, you reintroduce it, and then your body says, oh, that's broccoli. I know what to do with that. I can digest that the way appropriately and then send it down normally.
Wow.
So I found most of my clients who have allergies typically go away.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's incredible.
It is.
And it's about a 45-minute procedure.
Yes.
And it's a non-painful thing. It's relaxing. If you want to find that meditation space, you can. And, you know, I found it to be something that I was like apprehensive about, and I was like, oh, there's a lot of health benefits to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
what I tell clients, if they've never done a meditation before, typically we just focus on releasing from the colon, breathing, and then when they get to that place, I just have them visualize the water going up, grabbing the material, and then releasing it. It kind of calms and helps by breathing, and you know, it's a nice hour to be able to spend with yourself too, which we don't normally get.
Yeah. That's great. Now, the comedy guy in me,
Yeah.
I told my college-age kids, they were like, hey, how was it? I said, oh, she gives you a bucket and a garden hose, turns it on full blast, and, you know, I just made this big scenario. They're like, look at them. No, it's none of that happened.
Yeah.
So thank you, gave me a comedy point for my kids.
Yeah.
But the benefit of it is healthy, and I thought the visual aid, there was some comedy there too that I had to visual aid.
Just so people don't get scared of it, pinky size, if you want to see, and it only goes in this far.
Yeah.
So you're not putting the whole thing in rectally. It's only this.
Thanks for
Just
doing
to
that.
clarify, right?
I do remember when you gave me that, and I'm like, what the? How far? You're like, no, it's just a very small amount. I'm like, oh, okay.
And then, I mean, your bum just kind of fits around it. You don't even know that it's there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I knew it was there. I was very present to the fact that it was there.
Yeah.
But it absolutely was not painful.
Okay.
So I thank you for giving me that experience. And I know that the health benefits are so
Amazing.
important. That's something that people need to do. So you've integrated spirituality with the physical body, and you found a way to eliminate not only energetic, but actually waste.
Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of times, you know, for instance, I was working with one client, and sometimes I'll put my hand on people on their stomach if I feel guided to, or if they give me permission. And this one woman was having a hard time, and I could see in my mind that there's a blockage. I mean, obviously I don't have an x-ray, I can't see it.
Yeah.
And she was cramping, and I kind of could feel it. And I just saw it in my mind. So after a couple of sessions, I said, you know, I think you need to go and get an x-ray because it feels like something is in there. And sure enough, she had an impaction that was stuck in there. So it's nice for me to be able to bring that, but it's kind of that fine line and hard too, because people don't expect it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were doing massage therapy, you had your intuition.
Yeah.
You're doing that with your colon therapy too.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of scared me because when I was doing massage, I was 19. Like I said, I didn't have a background in religion, so I didn't know if I was doing something wrong. But what happened is I would just have people, and I would see something in my mind to hold here and hold there that it wasn't in my training. It was something outside of that. Or I would just know to do a different kind of massage. Or I would hear a question in my mind and then ask them, and they say, oh, why are you asking me that? and it was very specific to them because they had just asked God that. They're like, how were you inspired to ask me that question? And then it kind of weirded me out because I didn't have an answer, and I wasn't comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, I'm comfortable because I understand it and I know I'm not doing anything wrong. I know that where my alignment is in my relationship to God, it's a good one.
That's beautiful. Now, I know you told me after you wrote your book, you never had any other problems ever again, and you were always happy all the time.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
No, that's not true. In fact,
Tell me what happened.
Yeah. So I want to say, as soon as I put my book out, I almost felt like a fraud, and I wanted to pull my book off the shelf. Wow. Because here, I just published this. I'm happy. How did I get here?
Yeah.
But then it's trials.
My life is amazing.
Yeah. And then things started to come up for me. And, I just realized like, wow, I got to really focus on how to maintain that. Because it took a long time for me to get to that place where I just felt joy for no reason. Like normally it was the shoes or the clothes or, all those materials. I'll just go buy myself a bag and I feel amazing.
I'm happy. Yeah.
Right? That's where the corporate world served me well because it masked a lot of, being fancy. I felt amazing. And it helped with people's perception. Like, oh, she must be so happy and she looks fabulous all the time. And I was dying inside. I was just unhappy.
How many people are in that state, right?
Yeah, I think a lot. And so when I moved away from that and I just felt joy for no reason, that's what inspired me to write this book. And then after I published it, things started to come up and I had to realize like, wow, I got to write about how to keep that now. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm starting to write my second book.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a working title yet? Anything you can share?
I do, but I don't know if I should share it yet.
Don't share it then. Keep it under
it's
wraps.
funny because I already wrote 7 chapters and I wrote it on an airplane in 5 hours. And I haven't touched it since. So I just need to sit down and I'm sure it'll all come out. It's just finding that time.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you're working continuously on this human journey.
Yep.
You're not at a place where you've arrived and you're like, no, I just sit back and tell everybody everything because I know it all. You're still working and growing. What do you feel is that next thing that Carolyn Berry is experiencing?
Oof. What am I experiencing?
Where do you think that direction's going?
Yeah.
Or do you think you're in that vein and you're here to stay for a season?
No, I do. So I kind of took a break, which is another story was interesting. When I was doing the colonic, I would hear people come in and say, tell this, or, there was a lot of guidance there.
You say people, meaning spiritual?
Spirits, yes. Okay. And so I would literally have to tell them like, nope, I'm just a colon hydrotherapist right now. So, I did. I kind of shut that down because I needed to focus on my business.
You closed the curtains.
I closed the curtain and I was like, I got to you wanted me to do this, so I'm here.
Oh, you're a little crossed on, aren't you?
I did.
Yeah, a little rebellious going on,
And so now that I have that built, I have a good foundation going. I kind of opened that door a little bit, so I've started doing my classes again. And I think the next season for me is to take people actually on tours. So in February, I went to Chiapas, Mexico, and it was amazing. So that's my next thing is to...
What was the experience? What were you doing? Was it plant
Again, when I
medicine,
was there, I just went there. No, it wasn't plant medicine. I just went
Okay.
there for myself.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And again, I saw myself leading people. I saw what meditation to do here. I love doing cleanses, river cleanses. So I saw places for me to be able to do that there. And I want people to be able to experience that. That's affordable to be able to leave the country or go somewhere and just experience that, because that's what I did. I've done several tours myself, and it's time for me to lead them now.
It's beautiful. Yeah, sweet lady Gail and I got to go to Costa Rica, and we had 3 weeks where we had no appointments on the calendar.
Nice.
I highly recommend that people be able to get up, go out of where they're comfortable, go to some other place. We were uncomfortable because we didn't know the language there and we didn't speak Spanish. And no one there spoke English. It was a very secluded space. But in that uncomfortableness, you can get out of your like, I'm in control of everything. Now you're not in control. And it really gives you a space to listen and just to be like, ooh, I need to connect. Right.
And then you kind of realize, you get that sense of like, wow, nothing really matters. All the stuff that I've been thinking about, and if you have that moment to yourself, you can kind of realize like what really does matter. Relationships.
Life still functions even though I wasn't there for that time.
Exactly.
Everything still got done.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the business didn't burn down, the house, but the kids were fine, whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
That's great. So you have these spaces where you're taking people, and you're going to do some meditation. You're probably going to do lots of teaching and training.
Yeah. So part of my teaching is my program called Be You, Be Happy.
Oh, cool.
And so those are a series of worksheets. So for instance, there's one on identity, 8 to 25 questions going through how do you see yourself, how other people have identified you, what identity are you wanting to create for yourself? What do you want to let go of? Yeah, it's a heavy program because it's really everything that I asked myself over 8 years, and I put it together in worksheets. Then another one is belief systems, going through that. You know, what do you believe versus what the world's told you? What did you grow up with? What is the environment has taught you to be true?
Yep.
Yep.
That's really good. So you're like getting to the heart of that soul.
Oh,
that
yeah.
journey that
We're
people
diving
are on.
into those questions. We're getting to the root of it, you know. And even if you don't know the answer, you at least ask that question, so it's going to come up eventually.
Yeah.
And even so, we clear the energy around it, because that's the biggest thing. We hold on to so much.
Yeah.
You know, especially people I've seen, they thought, oh, I've healed that before. Well, you might have healed it in your mind or even in your heart, but your body's holding on to that energy.
Yep.
It's like in your cells, and, you know, we need to just move that out.
Yep. So people are thinking right now, okay, Carolyn, that's really interesting about your story. How does this apply to me? You are able to give people workshops, teaching, training, things that will help them on their journey. What are some of those questions that people have, like that you probably hear these things, you know, hey, am I going to do whatever? What are some of those questions that people have for your classes and workshops?
So first thing, I would recommend people reading my book, because there's a lot of information and
Really
teaching through
good.
there. Yeah. And I don't just say that, you know, it's really, there's a lot of teaching in there.
Yeah. And at what, $200 a copy? It's really affordable.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's really affordable.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
it's not $200 a copy. That was a joke.
And then I would recommend, if somebody can get to my class and come out that, but I also have the program that you can do at the comfort of your own home. So I literally just send you worksheets, and you answer the questions, you send them back to me, I give you some guidance. And what I can do is I can see when you answer at surface, and then sometimes I'll have like 4 more questions to that. You know, if we go over a belief system, it might just be your first answer that you really don't want to, you don't even realize that there's more to it, basically. So I might ask 4 more questions to get to where we need to go. Or, hey, why don't you think about this? Right? So I'm helping you uncover what it is that needs to be let go of, or moved out, or new perspective too. Because a lot of people come there like, I'm just unhappy. You know, well, what does happiness look like? Well, if you can't, you don't even know what that looks like, how can you get there? So like for me, people kept telling me, anytime I got work done with any mentor or healer of some sort, they always said, you need to love yourself more. That was like the common thing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting a massage like once a month. What else am I going to do?
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was actually, there's a thing called falling in love with yourself.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And when I asked that question, I said, okay, how do I need to love myself? I don't understand what that means. And then I started to see how I didn't love myself. I hated my voice. You know, that was one thing. I'd record my meditations for people, but I couldn't stand listening to it. Now I love listening to it. So this is my progression, right?
So good.
I mean, I love listening to a standpoint of, I know there's a certain frequency. For certain people are going to be attracted to that for whatever their needs are at that moment. And then there was healing in my words with my book, you know. And so my next layer of healing is doing this video, because this is uncomfortable for me. As you know, I'm super critical and have a perfectionism, and you know, but
you just be kind and gentle.
Exactly.
People love you. You're wonderful to work with.
Yeah. And this is another layer of actually falling in love, because we are critical of ourselves in so many different layers, and there's always opportunity to grow and say, wow, how can I love myself more deeply?
Lady Gail has the calendars every day, the Louise Hay calendars from Hay House, and today's message was, I love myself. I'm in love with me because I'm always there with myself.
Nice.
I was like, what an affirmation. Here you are saying the same thing.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
so good. And that's a good message for me. It's a good message for all of us, that if you can realize that you chose to be who you are, to be here and have this experience, how much better does it serve you just to love being here, rather than be like, I didn't choose to come here, somebody else made. No, you came here for a purpose, and you chose to be here.
And I used to think it was really selfish when people say you need to focus on yourself, or you have to take care of yourself first before others. And I didn't really get that. And now I get it. I mean, I truly do, because really the only person that matters is you. And then once, I mean, not from a negative standpoint, but from a nurturing standpoint, you know, once you heal and get those wounds removed and focus on the things that work for you, then you can help and serve other people too.
I love that analogy. I've heard that if you put the oxygen mask on yourself, then you'll be able to put it on other people around
exactly.
you. You know? Find that space that is that healing. Healed people are much more effective in healing other people.
Yes, absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
I love it. You are so beautiful, light and love and just energy and positivity. You're a hard worker. That's evident in the things that you do. You're an entrepreneur. You're always moving forward, and you're being of service to people. Your goal is to help be a connection to people with spirit.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. So thank you for the journey that you're doing and helping people.
Thank you.
So before we close, I always like to ask the guests if there's one thing that people took away from this. You want them to know this one thing. So what is that one thing?
Yeah, I would say try to just be you, and be happy. And if you don't know what that is, or if you don't know what that looks like, then start uncovering what that looks like. Because you can change it tomorrow. Today you want to be this, and tomorrow you want to be something different. We can do that. So be you and be happy. That's my message.
Beautiful. Simply done.
Yeah.
Carolyn Berry, thank you so much for being on the show. I think you're awesome.
Yeah, you as well. This is an honor. Thank you.
Awesome. High five.
All right.
I'm David Marsh, and you've been watching Exploring the Human Journey on YouTube as a video and listening as a podcast. If you would like to help continue the conversation, please consider supporting us by visiting patreon.com, where you can support us on a monthly basis and get extra bonus content. For as little as $1 a month, you can make this show sustainable and help continue spiritual consciousness. You can also help by following us on Facebook and Instagram. For more information about the show, find us online at exploringthehumanjourney.com.